So today we're going to be continuing to look at the alternative future of the world. In the last alternative future video, we had one large global conflict break out between pretty much all of the big major alliances. So the obvious one being between the WDO, which is essentially NATO in this universe, and the CSTO. And from there, each alliance joined in on its favored side, which now that I'm thinking about it, they all just joined in on the WDO side. But it was still a pretty interesting video, and as you can see, no one really lost that. It was kind of a land exchange. So I highly suggest you go watch that video and pretty much all the other alternative videos because they're super good, they're super fun to make, and I've heard that you guys really enjoy them. So why not go give it a watch? Anyway, in today's video, we're going to be continuing on with the series, and if you do enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also, I apologize for my voice sounding kind of raspy. I don't know why that's happening. So anyway, in today's video, we're going to be having some, I guess, Cold War like things taking place. You see, the world just got over one large global conflict, and there's still a ton of alliances and still a bunch of countries that are not in alliances. The CSTO only expanded after that war, especially down here into Africa, whereas the WDO and other alliances really didn't expand at all. So the West decides that it's their time to expand. First off, we're starting over here in America, where Mexico has finally made up its mind and has decided to join in on the WDO. Now, if you remember in the previous episodes, Mexico erupted into civil war. The United States came in and kind of took some land, and the new pro-American Mexican government was given the option to join the Rio Pact or the WDO or stay neutral. At that time, they voted to stay neutral, but they did say they would consider this in the future. And well, it's the future now, and Mexico decides that they want to join in on the WDO. As for the rest of the Americas, we don't have them joining the WDO, but all of these countries vote in favor of joining the Rio Pact for one solid defensive pact in the Americas. Now, in real life, Nicaragua doesn't have a very friendly government towards basically everyone over here. But in this scenario, no, it's been like 100 years. I'm sure they've gotten over it. And that also just leaves these Caribbean islands, which are probably underwater, but you know, they also vote in favor of joining this pact. And overall, all of the Americas just wants to be secure. Now remember, the Rio Pact is solely just a defensive pact, so if one of these countries does get attacked, then you know it's a war. It's an active war against all of them, kind of like how NATO works. So yeah, all of these countries in the Americas are now a part of it. This includes the United States, Canada, and now Mexico. And yeah, don't mess with the Americas. Jumping back over here to Africa here. This is probably the most neutral continent, but at the same time, there's also a lot of stuff going on. If you remember in the last video, we had the West African Federation getting its butt kicked by the WDO. They decided to side with the CSTO, which was probably of their not best interest because Nigeria also sided with the WDO, making them an enemy. And we all know what Nigeria did from there. They invaded Cameroon and then took a piece of the West African Federation. Morocco is looking very nice with these borders, and well, Algeria got their border extended just a little bit. Speaking of Algeria, they are still technically a colony of France, although France and Algeria have agreed to start to move towards independence. Now granted, that independence grant is solely being kept in place by the fact that Algeria is agreeing to stay in the WDO and to stay pro WDO. They're not independent now, but they might be in the future. As for Libya, they broke away from the United States, got a new government that is pro-Egyptian, which is pro-Russian, so they're all part of the CSTO now. But considering over here in Africa, I don't think Nigeria would want to join the WDO simply because they don't have any direct threats. But moving down to the East African Federation Alliance, I think we're finally going to be having them uniting. Now, as of now, they're just a defensive pact, but I think it's finally time for them to, you know, unite. So just like that, the East African Federation is finally founded over here in East Africa, and the alliance ceases to exist simply because there's no point of it. They're all one country now. And immediately after this, we have some surrounding countries putting in their resume and saying, hey, we want to be a part of this. At the other side of things, we also have the CSTO starting to put troops on the border because they're scared. The CSTO's weakest front is most likely in Africa simply because they're surrounded. You know, the WDO has Tunisia and Algeria over here, and then they have Israel and, or my bad, or what did I call it? Israelstein? Yeah, they have this country, and then they have Turkey up north, and then the Gulf Shield Alliance is basically the WDO as well, so they're completely surrounded. I think it would be hard for them to make gains here without dying, so putting troops on this border is understandable. But continuing on, we actually don't have anything happening down here in Southern Africa because everyone down here is friendly and nobody wants to kill each other except for maybe South Africa, but you know, they're fine at this point. Moving on over to Asia, we have nobody joining anybody here because everyone likes their neutrality, but secretly everyone likes the PDO because, as stated in the last video, they don't like all this influence. Mongolia broke away from the CSTO in the last video because of their neutrality stance. They said, why did we do this? You know, they got a little bit of land and then they immediately lost it. So they want to avoid that from happening again. But now it's time for some actual wars because that's the reason you all clicked on this video. The first war is actually going to be taking place back in Africa where This poor little country, Djibouti, they're about to die. Eritrea and Ethiopia, who both got new government following the major conflict. Eritrea and Ethiopia, who got a new government following the previous conflict, decided to declare war on Djibouti in order to get access for the coast for Ethiopia, and of course just to expand. This poor little country literally has no chance, and they die. Peace treaty wise, they just extend a straight line border over, and Ethiopia gets access to the I guess the Red Sea, or I guess this would be the Gulf of Aden. So now the Horn of Africa looks a little bit different, although basically no one can tell the difference. But going over here to Somalia and Somaliland real quick. Somalia is in a not so good state. I don't think they would really want to join anybody because nobody wants them. But Somalia is crumbling and Somaliland isn't doing much better. But they did just recently get their independence, so they're trying. I would assume that they would get invaded by Ethiopia eventually, and the same could be said for maybe like a split between Somalia with the East African Federation and Ethiopia. But for now, they're just dying and nobody does anything about it. Heading back over to Europe, we have a unification taking place, which, you know, everybody kind of saw coming. But we have a unification between Russia and Belarus happening. And this is just because Russia kind of lost its buffer zone in Ukraine. They now directly border the WDO. So they are deciding to fully embrace it. And this will also kind of just make, you know, transportation between Kaliningrad and itself easier. So just like that, Russia and Belarus unite. Russia now has easier access to Kaliningrad because, well, it's their territory now. And the WDO are a little bit more scared about this because, you know, Russia is going to move its assets even closer and tensions rise even more following the war. So now the world has gotten that out of their system. It's time for some Cold War stuff to happen. And this time it's going to be taking place over here in West Africa, where this newly formed federation is having some issues. Now, they were doing good at first. A lot of countries joined for the economical benefits, but then they got involved in a war, and now a lot of countries are mad and want to leave. The problem with that is the central government says, no, you cannot leave, and this leads to a civil war. Immediately, we have Niger declaring independence, and from here, it just kind of crumbles. Following their declaration, we have a joint coalition between Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, which declare their independence. And then, just because it's free land, we have Nigeria declaring war on the West African Federation. Now, where does the Cold War aspect come into place? Well, it already is kind of coming into play because a country is falling apart into a civil war, which we saw in sort of, I guess the whole Civil War thing can kind of be traced back to like Vietnam and Korea, but those were just countries declaring war on each other. A better example with that would be some of the Central American revolutions and stuff like that. But anyway, with this, we had the WDO sending peacekeeping forces into the country, so they just exit out from Morocco. And then, unfortunately, we had the CSTO also sending in their own peacekeeping forces, except for this time, they're invading Niger. Yeah, that's right. This whole West African thing really kind of blew up. Niger and Nigeria make an agreement, which basically says, if you don't invade me, I won't invade you, and that has followed through. And as for the other groups, they kind of just decide that they want to take down the blue. And as for the other rebel groups, they all decide that they just want to target the blue, so no one really invades each other other than the CSTO, who doesn't care. So Nigeria crosses the border and starts to invade down into the southern coast, and blue team forces actually start to manage to push back the I'm just going to call it the Guinea coalition. So that goes well for them. Meanwhile, up north, the WDO forces start to take more land. The CSTO now starts to spearhead over towards the West African Federation, while at the same time cutting off northern Niger, which quickly falls over to them. At this point, Niger did make a little bit of land gains, but they kind of stopped that in order to fend off the CSTO, which they are no match for. The West African Federation takes this to their advantage and pushes back Niger. From here, Nigeria then decides to go up into this land, which doesn't necessarily break the agreement since Niger doesn't own it anymore, but Niger isn't too happy about it. But you know, they're kind of dying, so they don't really get a say in it. WDO forces now link up with the Guinea coalition, which is either good or bad for them. In this case, it's good. Meanwhile, the blue team continues to push back the Guinea coalition, which is slowly falling apart at this point. Eventually, they are split in half, and the Liberian portion falls. And following this, the Guinea coalition completely surrenders. The CSTO now pushes down and over into the West African Federation, and it is at this point that the WDO sends its forces from Algeria out into the country in order to stop the CSTO from getting land. They immediately line the border with the CSTO and start to push towards the center with the countries. Back over in Niger, the CSTO forces continue to murder everybody they see until eventually Niger surrenders to the CSTO, which prompts Nigeria to quickly start to push into the surrendered country in order to gain any land. They manage to get a little bit, but the majority of it goes over to the CSTO, and from here Nigeria joins the race in order to cut off the CSTO from gaining any land in the West African Federation. WDO forces continue to push down the coast while also starting to push inland from over here. Nigeria does the same thing, so they also push down into the coast while also pushing inland. And from here we have another rebel group popping up. This one isn't aligned to anybody, it's just purely a rebel group, and they start to make actual gains. Up north, the CSTO manages to outrun the WDO, which is not good for anybody because the CSTO is going to be getting a good chunk of land out of this area of Africa. But one thing that the WDO does manage to do is cut off the CSTO from going up north into Mali and Mauritania. It is at this point that the West African Federation surrenders to all the parties and a peace treaty is started to be drawn up. All right, look at this peace treaty here. Looks like nobody learned from the whole straight line thing in Africa. But Nigeria is given land all the way over to Ghana, and they also get a good chunk of southern Niger. As for Niger itself, it is annexed by the CSTO, and they also get a good portion of land out of Mali and Burkina Faso. And as for the rest of the country, it is given a new government, so it's not annexed by anybody. It's just the West African Federation is reborn under control of the WDO. And speaking of WDO, we have the new country joining the WDO, while we have Niger, which is what I'm going to be calling it, joining in on the CSTO. Nigeria becomes even more WDO aligned, but they once again refrain from joining the alliance simply because they can most definitely fend off themselves from this. And yeah, the African continent now is becoming less and less neutral, although there's still a long way to go if we want to consider it fully not neutral. So with more and more of the world becoming aligned to one side or another, obviously tensions are rising, and everyone thinks that another war might break out soon. I mean, looking at it, both alliances look strong. Their leaders, the United States and Russia, are strong countries. But just like the Cold War, we might have something But just like the real Cold War, we might have this ending out in a fizzle instead of a bang. The real life Cold War ended when the Soviet Union dissolved, and along with that, the Warsaw Pact. So maybe something similar will be happening here. Not in this video, in the next video, but we could see some of these major alliances start to crumble. But anyway, remember how I was talking about Somalia and Somaliland early on in this video? Well, their time has come. Ethiopia declares war on Somalia, and jumping straight into this, we also have the East African Federation declaring war on Somalia, but not on the same team as Ethiopia. Ethiopian forces immediately push across and cut Somalia into two, which effectively makes the northern half fall, while we have the East African Federation pushing in from the south and going up and eventually meeting up with Ethiopian forces. Now these two countries kind of spite each other. I mean, Ethiopia used to be a part of the East African Federation alliance until they got a new government, so there's still some kind of I guess relation, but the government is forced to hate the East African Federation, so at the same time it's more of like the people like each other and not the governments. But yeah, these borders are left like this, and this looks kind of ugly, so Ethiopia decides it's time to declare war on Somaliland. And unfortunately for this country, they aren't a part of any pacts, and that's going to be the downfall of them. Ethiopian forces quickly move in, and Somaliland is quick to fall. In the peace treaty, they are fully annexed. So yeah, the Horn of Africa is looking a lot more united under one country. It's also looking a little tense between Sudan and the East African Federation, as well as Ethiopia and the East African Federation. Speaking of the East African Federation, they have a new member joining, and that is the Republic of the Congo. Now, economically, I'm not sure how they're doing in this universe, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind joining in on this, as it is becoming relatively strong. Economically strong, yes. Military wise, moderate. They may have to do some more expanding before they can be considered able to defend themselves, but for now they're mainly focusing on their economy, which is a really good step when you want to consider buffeting your military. Anyway, one final thing we have happening in this video, and this will be the last thing I promise, is another unification in Europe. This is probably another one you might have saw coming, but we have unification between Romania and Moldova. Now, in real life, Moldova is prevented from uniting with Romania due to a peace treaty, but in this scenario, that peace treaty was kind of invalidated after Moldova was invaded by Russia. So they now have a new peace treaty, which doesn't say anything about being neutral, and from there, Moldova decides it's time to join Romania. So yeah, that is that. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I do want to talk about one thing real quick, which is the 70,000 subscriber special. Now, I'm not going to do anything for the 60K special simply because the 50K special was so big and it covered a lot of content, and I'm still kind of burnt out from that. I don't know. The 50k special, the Empire video, took a very long time to make, and you know, I've been kind of straying away from Empire videos ever since then, which I don't want to be the case because I know you guys like the Empire videos and I like the Empire videos. But the Alternative Future series takes up 1 day every week, which means I only have 1 day and every week to make a video that isn't the Alternative Future, and mostly I like to do other stuff. Like the last video was, I can't remember what the last video was. Last video was another series video. It was what if North America united. And then after that we had what if the strongest countries went to war, which you guys liked that video. We had what if Asia united, so you can kind of see a pattern here. I do like to do some of the other series. I did what if Saudi Arabia and Iran went to war. That was simply just an experimental video because I used to do these versus videos a lot more often, but they kind of fizzled out, and I just want to see if you guys want to see that again, and apparently no is the answer to that. The last Empire video I did was what if Turkey formed an empire, and that did like really bad analytically. And I know analytics aren't everything, but Empire series wise, if a video does really bad, I don't really want to do any more empires because, you know, we want to keep growing. We want to get to 100k by the end of this year, which we are still pushing for. So if you want to see us hit that goal by the end of this year, make sure to go get some of your friends, say, hey, subscribe to AdizzPro or I'm gonna break your knees. Don't say that, that's mean. But just, you know, if anyone else is interested, or if, you know, they just want to subscribe anyway, 100k by the end of this year would be amazing. It's not my official goal yet until we get a little bit closer and I can see that it's 100% possible. It's just going to be an idea. If we don't hit it by the end of the year, it's no big deal because we'll definitely hit it in January or February, which is crazy to think because that's not too far away from now. So we're getting really close to 100,000 subscribers. We're currently at 63,000. And well, thank you guys for that. 63% of the way there to, I guess, my YouTube dream. So yeah, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the video, all that kind of cool stuff. I say it in every video. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of saying it, but I do want to extend the importance out to you guys. I have a lot of fun making these YouTube videos, and I really do hope you guys enjoy watching them. I would like to do YouTube as a full-time thing. I'm currently doing it as a full-time thing, but in the future wise, like instead of having a real job, making YouTube videos full-time would be one of my life dreams things to do. I know it could be considered lazy or it can be considered not a real job, but for me it's just something I really enjoy doing, and the benefit of that is I get paid for it. Money wise, it's not really that important, but when you do your favorite thing and you get paid for it, it's like, wow, that's great. So you can kind of see where I'm coming from when I say I want to do this as a full-time thing, because if I could, I would be doing one of my most favorable things and I wouldn't have to do another job. So yeah, the YouTube dream, very nice. Anyway, 70k special, I'm going to be doing some reactions to some of you guys' videos. I have seen a few of them, and I do want to do these reactions because it helps out these smaller channels. I know what it's like to be a small channel and how it is to like do all these amazing videos and to put on all this work only to be outsourced by a baby video or a stupid meme compilation. I know how it feels and I hate it. And I know some of these small channels do struggle with that. So yeah, I'm going to be reacting to videos. If you have videos out there, don't send them in the comments because you're going to get flagged. But just, I guess you can put them in the Discord server in the advertisements channel. I might see them there. I don't know. Link to the Discord server is in the description if you want to join that. And yeah, I'm done rambling. So once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.